Cullen's world was one of silent, flowing data and the soft, persistent hum of the luminance's shield matrix. From his station in the security nexus, a room of serene blue light and hovering holographic displays, he watched the heartbeat of the great ship. His duty was not one of aggression. The Valarians had transcended such concepts, but of vigilant protection. Their shields were their fortress, a sophisticated web of harmonic energy that could deflect particle beams, dissipate plasma, and render the ship a silent, untouchable ghost in the void. It was, they knew, the pinnacle of defensive technology. Then the proximity alert chimed, a different tone than the one that had announced the humans' arrival. This one was sharper, laced with a harmonic dissonance that set Cullen's teeth on edge. His long fingers danced across the console, pulling up the tactical overlay. 3 vessels. Their profiles were jagged, aggressive, and horrifyingly familiar. Lorik, Cullen's voice was calm, but a thread of ice ran through it. We have incoming Vorax marauders. On the main viewer, Lorik's face appeared, his usual serenity replaced by grim acceptance. Their timing is unfortunate. Maintain defensive posture. Raise the harmonic shields to full strength. They will find no purchase here. Through the security nexus's main viewport, Cullen watched as the Vorax ships, looking like clusters of sharp, dark rock, closed in. They were scavengers, predators who preyed on the isolated and the weak, drawn by the luminance's unique energy signature. As they entered weapons range, they opened fire without hail or warning. Lances of crude, violent orange plasma streaked across the void. The luminance's shields shimmered into visibility, a beautiful, iridescent bubble around the ship. The plasma bolts struck and splashed against the energy field like water on glass. The shield held, unbreached. A soft, satisfied murmur went through the security nexus. Their technology was superior. It was as it should be. But the Vorax did not relent. They were simple, but not stupid. They began to hammer the same section of the shield over and over, their attacks a brutal, percussive rhythm. And Cullen watched, his amethyst eyes widening slightly. As the shield's harmonic readout began to flicker, the perfect, resonant frequency was being stressed, forced to absorb a chaotic, overwhelming amount of raw energy. A hairline fracture, invisible to the eye but glaring on his monitors, began to propagate through the matrix. Lorik, Cullen reported, his voice tight. The shields are overloading. The Vorax attack is too dissonant. Our harmonics cannot compensate. Divert power from non-essential systems, Lorik ordered. His voice strained. Reinforce the matrix. It was a standard procedure, but Cullen knew it was a delaying tactic. The Vorax were like relentless stonecutters, and the luminance was a fine crystal glass. They would shatter it through sheer, brute force repetition. The main lights in the nexus flickered as power was rerouted. The serene hum of the ship became a strained whine. On the viewer, the shield was visibly wavering, the beautiful colors bleeding into a sickly, unstable gray. They were minutes, perhaps seconds, from a catastrophic failure. It was then that Cullen sensed a presence behind him. He turned, and there was the human, Jax. He had slipped into the nexus unnoticed, his face a mask of intense concentration as he watched the tactical display. His eyes were fixed on the Vorax ships. "What is he doing here?" One of Cullen's subordinates whispered, aghast. "This is a secured area." Jax ignored them, his gaze locked on the enemy vessels. "Their engines," he said, his voice cutting through the tension. "They're loud, real loud." Cullen stared at him. "Their engine signature is irrelevant. Their weapons are the threat." "No," Jax said, stepping closer to the display. He pointed at the Vorax ship's drive plumes, a messy, fiery orange. "Look at the emission spectrum. It's all over the place, chaotic, no harmonic stability at all. Their whole ship must be vibrating like an unbalanced washing machine." The comparison was so crude, so utterly alien to their way of thinking, that Cullen was left speechless. What did the internal stability of the enemy ship matter when their shields were about to fail? "Their shields are a different system," Cullen said, trying to maintain his professionalism. "We must focus on reinforcing our own." "You're thinking like a shield," Jax said, turning to look at Cullen, his eyes blazing with an unnerving intensity. "Don't fight their weapons. Don't try to match their chaos, use it. Their systems are fragile because they're simple. Hit them with a bigger chaos, He gestured vaguely back in the direction of the hangar bay. "My ship, the Scrap King. It's got a industrial magnet impulsor for crushing scrap metal. It puts out a dirty, wideband impulse and a resonance frequency that's all over the map. It's garbage for a focused attack, but if I modulate it to overlap with their engine harmonics." He let the sentence hang. Kellen's mind, trained in the precise, elegant science of Valarian warfare, recoiled at the idea. It was barbaric. It was messy. It was attacking the enemy's foundation, not their fist. "You propose to use a scrap compressor as a weapon?" Kellen asked, disbelief warring with a desperate, burgeoning hope. "I propose we give them a taste of their own medicine," Jack said flatly. "Their systems can't handle the feedback. It'll be like screaming into a microphone that's too close to the speaker. Their own energy will tear them apart from the inside." An alarm blared. The shield matrix was at 12% integrity. A Vorax plasma bolt slipped through a momentary gap, scorching a black wound across the luminance's pristine hull. The ship shuddered. Lorik's voice came over the comm, sharp with urgency. "Kellen, we are losing integrity." Kellen looked at Jax. He looked at the desperate, crude solution the human offered. He looked at the failing shields and the relentless enemy. Their perfect, harmonious technology was failing. The human's ugly, pragmatic one might be their only hope. "Do it," Kellen said. The words feeling foreign and heavy in his mouth. Jax didn't need to be told twice. He was already running, his heavy boots pounding a frantic rhythm on the glowing floor. Kellen watched him go, then turned back to the console, his hands flying as he reconfigured the luminance's external comms array to act as a focusing dish for the human's barbaric signal. Minutes later, a new sound echoed through the ship, a deep, grating, ugly roar that vibrated through the very deck plates. It was the sound of the Scrap King's magnet impulsor, amplified and directed. On the tactical display, a visible wave of distorted space, shimmering like a heat haze, shot out from the luminance and washed over the Vorax ships. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The lead Vorax ship's engine flare stuttered, then ballooned into a silent, violent explosion that tore the vessel in half. The second ship spun wildly, its systems fried, its weapons going dead. The third simply went dark, all power failing, becoming just another piece of drifting rock. The battle was over. The silence that followed was deafening. Len stood at his station, his body trembling with the aftershock of adrenaline and disbelief. The Valarian Accord's most advanced defensive systems had been on the verge of defeat. They had been saved not by superior harmony, but by a targeted, calculated dose of pure, undiluted chaos, delivered by a machine built to crush junk. He looked towards the hangar bay, where the human had returned to his rusty ship. They had welcomed him as a primitive. They had patronized him, and in their moment of greatest need, he had not offered them poetry or philosophy. He had offered them a sledgehammer, and it had worked. The uninvited guest had not been the Vorax. It had been the truth about humanity, and it had just broken down their door. The silence in the wake of the battle was heavier than the explosion itself. The elegant, pearlescent corridors of the luminance, usually humming with serene energy, now felt like a tomb. The air was thick with the acrid scent of ozone from overloaded systems, and the unspoken shame of a people who had just been saved from their own perfection. Jack stood in the hangar bay, leaning against the scarred hull of the Scrap King. The adrenaline was draining away, leaving a hollow, tired feeling in its place. He watched as Valarian repair teams moved like silent, silver ghosts, their fluid grace now seeming fragile. He had done it. He had stopped the attack, and in doing so, he had shattered the illusion they had all been living under. He didn't hear her approach, but he felt her presence. He turned to find Alara standing a few feet away. Her amethyst eyes were wide, not with fear or pity, but with a profound, startling clarity. The look of condescending benevolence was gone, replaced by something raw and real. "They're calling it the resonance solution in the command nexus," she said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "They're trying to fit what you did into their framework of harmonic science." Jax gave a tired, half-hearted shrug. "I just gave them a loud, ugly shove. Their systems are too refined to clean. The Vorax were messy. You can't block a mudslide with a silk curtain A mudslide, Alara repeated, a faint, wondering smile touching her lips. That is what we are to you, isn't it? A world of silk curtains. No, Jack said, pushing off from the hull and taking a step toward her. It's a beautiful world, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, but it's built on the idea that the universe will play by its rules. My people, we learned a long time ago that the universe doesn't have rules. It just has consequences. He gestured to the Scrap King. The ship isn't a testament to determination, Alara. It's a testament to failure, to all the things that broke, and all the times we had to fix them with whatever was at hand. That's where our technology comes from, not from a pursuit of harmony, but from a refusal to die. Alara looked from him to his ship, and for the first time, she didn't see rust and crudeness. She saw resilience. She saw the countless scars of 1,000 near disasters, each one a lesson learned the hard way. She saw the magneton pulsar, the ugly, brutish tool that had just saved them all. My people are terrified of you now, she confessed, her gaze returning to his. Not because you are powerful, but because you are unpredictable. You look at our greatest wonders and you see their weaknesses. You look at our harmony and you see a vulnerability. And your people, Jax countered, his voice dropping. You looked at my rust and saw ignorance. You looked at my questions and saw a simple mind. You were so sure of your own superiority that you never stopped to consider we might be different, not lesser. The truth of his words hung between them, stark and undeniable. The welcome party was over. The facade had crumbled. So what happens now? Alara asked, the question meant for both of them, for their peoples. Now, Jack said, closing the final distance between them. He didn't touch her, but the space between them crackled with a new, unspoken understanding. Now you have a choice. You can see us as a threat, a chaotic force that needs to be contained or controlled. Or you can see us for what we are. And what is that? Her voice was barely a breath, the other half. He said simply, you have the harmony, the beauty, the science of things working as they should. We have the grit, the improvisation, the science of things working even when they're broken. Alone, you're a perfect, beautiful song that can be shattered by a single wrong note. Alone, we're just noise. But together, he finally reached out, his calloused, grease-stained hand hovering near her slender, silver one. Together, we could be a duet, a song strong enough to survive any discord. Alara looked at his hand, then up into his eyes. She saw no malice, no desire for conquest. She saw only the blunt, honest truth. He wasn't offering domination. He was offering balance. He was offering to be the anchor for their kite, the foundation for their spire. Slowly, deliberately, she placed her hand in his. His grip was firm, warm, and reassuringly solid. It was not the touch of a primitive. It was the touch of a partner, a duet, she whispered, the word feeling both terrifying and right. In that moment, standing in the shadow of his battered ship amidst the gleaming ruins of their first contact, something new was born. It wasn't the subjugation the Valarians had feared, nor the guidance they had arrogantly offered. It was a promise that the galaxy was not a place for a single, perfect song, but for a symphony of many voices, some harmonious, some raw and untamed, all stronger for being sung together. The aliens had come to welcome humanity to the galaxy, and in realizing that humanity was the one thing their perfect civilization lacked, the strength of imperfection, the power of the repair, they immediately and irrevocably regretted their assumptions. But in that regret, they found not an ending, but a far more interesting beginning.